After World War II, German General Heinz Guderian studied the campaigns of General George Patton. He never fought him directly, but he understood exactly how he operated, because he had built the same kind of warfare years earlier. Fast movement, constant pressure, no hesitation. But when Guderian looked at Patton, he didn't just see success. He saw a pattern he already knew, one that could lead to victory or to collapse. So the real question is, would Guderian have considered Patton a brilliant commander or a dangerous one? Subscribe if you enjoy real World War II history. To answer that, we have to start in 1940. On May 13, 1940, near the town of Sedan, Heinz Guderian launched one of the most decisive armored operations of the war. His 19th Panzer Corps was ordered to cross the Meuse River. French command believed this sector was naturally protected. The terrain was difficult, the river was wide, and large-scale armored movement was considered unlikely. But Guderian saw an opportunity. He concentrated his forces, over 1,000 tanks. At the same time, the Luftwaffe launched continuous airstrikes against French positions. The goal was simple: break the line and do it fast. Within 48 hours, the French defensive system collapsed. But what happened next defined Guderian's command style. German High Command ordered him to stop, to secure the flanks, to wait for infantry support. Guderian ignored those orders. He believed that speed was more important than caution. Instead of stopping, he pushed forward immediately. His units advanced deep into France. By May 20th, they reached the English Channel, more than 300 kilometers in just 1 week. This single maneuver cut off Allied forces in northern France. Hundreds of thousands of British and French soldiers were trapped. What followed was the evacuation at Dunkirk, one of the most dramatic moments of the war. Guderian later wrote, "Speed and surprise decide everything in modern warfare." But behind that success was a growing risk. The faster his forces moved, the more exposed they became. Supply lines stretched, coordination weakened, and control became harder to maintain. And this is important, because years later, another commander would make the same choice: move faster than the system could safely support. 4 years later, in August 1944, General George Patton was given command of the U.S. Third Army. The situation in France had already begun to shift. After the Normandy landings in June, German forces were under constant pressure. But they were not defeated. They were still organized, still capable of resistance. What they lacked was time, and Patton understood that. On August 8th, his forces captured the city of Le Mans, but instead of slowing down, he accelerated. Patton did not follow a cautious advance. He pushed his army forward in multiple directions at once. His objective was not just territory. It was disruption. German units began to lose cohesion. Communication broke down. Entire formations were bypassed and surrounded before they could react. At times, Patton's units advanced over 70 kilometers in a single day. This was not just speed. This was operational shock. German command struggled to understand what was happening. Reports became inconsistent. Front lines blurred, and decisions came too late. Patton believed in constant pressure. He once said, "Keep moving, never give the enemy time to recover." And for a moment, it worked perfectly. But there was a problem. The faster his army moved, the more it depended on fuel, and fuel could not keep up. Supply convoys stretched across hundreds of kilometers. Roads became congested. Deliveries slowed down. At one point, Patton's advance nearly stopped, not because of German resistance, but because his tanks had nothing left to burn. And this changes everything. Because now the question is no longer about success. The question is about limits. Was Patton controlling the pace of his advance, or was the pace beginning to control him? In June 1941, Heinz Guderian faced the same problem, but on a much larger scale. During Operation Barbarossa, he commanded Panzer Group II. His objective was clear: advance deep into Soviet territory, break the Red Army, and move toward Moscow. At the beginning, everything worked. His forces moved rapidly across Belarus. Soviet defenses collapsed in multiple sectors. Entire armies were encircled. Hundreds of thousands of Soviet soldiers were captured. By July, Guderian's units had already reached Smolensk. The road to Moscow was opening, but the deeper his forces advanced, the more fragile the situation became. Supply lines stretched across hundreds of kilometers. Fuel deliveries slowed. Repair units could not keep up with damaged vehicles. Infantry support lagged behind. Guderian understood the danger. He argued that the advance must remain focused. Moscow was the key objective. Every delay increased the risk. But Adolf Hitler saw the situation differently. He ordered Guderian to redirect his forces south toward Ukraine. The goal was economic: capture resources, secure territory. Guderian opposed the order. He believed it would cost them momentum, and momentum in mobile warfare was everything. But the decision was not his. His forces turned south. Weeks were lost, and when the advance toward Moscow resumed, it was too late. By December 1941, the German offensive had failed. Winter arrived. Soviet resistance strengthened, and Guderian was removed from command. This was not just a failed operation. It was a demonstration of a deeper truth. Speed can destroy the enemy, but it can also destroy your own strategy if the system behind it cannot keep up. And this is exactly the line that Patton was approaching in 1944. Heinz Guderian never wrote a direct analysis of George Patton. They fought on different fronts, under different conditions, and in different phases of the war. But Guderian did not need to meet him, to understand him, because he had already lived through the same kind of command: fast decisions, constant movement, relentless pressure, a style of warfare that could break an enemy before they had time to react, but also a style that carried its own risks. Guderian had seen what happens when speed goes too far, when logistics fall behind, when coordination begins to fail, when momentum becomes uncontrollable. And if he had studied Patton's campaign in France, he would have recognized all of it: the brilliance, the confidence, the ability to exploit chaos, but also the danger, the thin supply lines, the dependence on fuel, the risk of advancing faster than your own army could sustain. So was Patton a brilliant commander? Yes. But he was also operating at the very edge of collapse. And that is what makes him one of the most debated generals of the Second World War. Because in war, the same quality that creates victory can also lead to failure. So now the question is yours. Would Guderian have respected Patton's style or warned against it? Write your opinion in the comments. If you enjoy real World War II stories, subscribe and support the channel. Thank you for watching. My name is Mike, and this was War from Mike's Perspective. See you in the next video.